live here, and now I can sing my jingle. Not the smartest guys in the room. Not the smartest guys in the room. Tom wears a hat. Dom does not. what do you What do you think? I'm working on it. I got one line. Not the smartest guys in the room.
I feel like it needs a lot of work, man. I'm just going to be real honest. Don't quit your day job. Don't. I don't think singing is in the cards. Don't sign up for to audition for The Voice or any of those kinds of shows. America's Got Talent. Definitely not for singing. I mean, I'm sure there's other things you could do. Maybe growing a beard. We could put that. It's only been how many days? I mean, I don't know. Fastest growing beard. It would be quite a long audition, but I don't
What do
know.
we got? 10 days. I got a now. I got a competitive beard like you and Swift. You wear a beard. Swift over there wears a beard. I think John Jay might have a beard. I know he's got that mustache. Does he have a beard?
He's got he's got a mustache. He's got the mustache. Well, and you said something funny too right before we got on, right? That something is not cool anymore when middle-aged guys and their like white guys in their 40s start doing it, right? Yeah, it's it is sort of, it always is the death knell of something, the coolness of something when white guys in their 40s start doing it. So yeah, I'm with you on that. But like I was saying before, to you, in my own defense, I've had a beard for like over 15 years. I've had facial hair for longer than that. I rocked the mustache and goatee for a while, and then I went full beard. Yeah, I've had a beard for at least 15 years. So I started doing it well before I was in my 40s, well before, more than a decade before. So I don't know. And I've been shaving my head for like over 20 years. So I don't know. I feel like I'm grandfathered in, that it's still coolish.
Tom, something we never knew. When you started shaving your head, was it out of necessity at first, or were you thinking, or did you have a full head of hair and you're like out doing marathons and you're like, I'll just shave it?
No, well, first of all, I was not doing anything close to marathons when I started shaving my head. I started shaving my head in college, and I was smoking a pack a day and drinking a lot and not exercising at all. So there's that. But yeah, no, I started shaving it because my hairline was like rapidly retreating. Right, it was running scared. It was running for the hills. The hills being the back of my head, yeah, it was fading fast, and so I decided to just go ahead and bite the bullet and just shave it. Yeah, I had an extreme widow's peak at like 19 years old. Yeah, so it was sort of like, look, like, am I gonna be a guy in college who looks like he's a middle-aged accountant, or am I just going to shave my head? Right. That was sort of like, I felt like that was the calculus. And so I opted to just start shaving my head. I already had both of my ears pierced. I had facial hair. It was sort of like, why not? Right. Just complete the sort of the bad guy image, or the rebel image, I guess. So I did. Yeah. So there it was.
Off, it's solid, looks good, and you're bigger than I anticipated when I saw you. So I saw a picture of you running one day. Like, this must have been when you first started, and you had like a long beard, and like this dude looked like I mean, like people would walk across the street when. I don't get the cross the street vibe from you these days, but that big beard you had in one of those races, that's the vibe I was getting.
Yeah, that was about I think that was about 5 years ago now. I decided one winter, I'd had the beard, for, like I said, more than 10 years at that point. And I decided one winter, you know what? I'm just going to let it grow out. I just want to kind of see what happens, right? Like, and so I let it kind of grow basically down to my collarbone. Like from my chin down to my collarbone. It was like pretty much my whole neck, almost my whole neck was hidden by my beard. Yeah, it was a look, but it was honestly part of the thing that I really have grown to love about not having hair and keeping my beard short is the ease of maintenance, right? Like, I can take a 5-minute shower, right? No problem. No need to dry my hair. No need to style anything, right? Like, I'm out of the shower, dry off with a towel, and I'm done, right? So like, the fact that I would get out of the shower, I'd have to dry off, I'd have to let my beard dry because there was so much hair, like there was so much of it that you couldn't just dry it with a towel. Then I would have to like comb it. I'd have to put like beard oil in it so it would like lay straight. Like it was a whole thing. And it ruined what I kind of loved about not having hair, right? It was sort of like, great. So like I don't have hair on my head and I haven't had to like style my hair or worry about like, what my hair looked like for most of my adult life. And then I'm basically trading that in to like have to spend 20 minutes making my beard look presentable before I leave the house. Yeah, no thanks. So I cut it. But yeah, I had that for a good like 6 months or so before I finally was just like, enough is enough. Also, something you never think of: winter coat. Zip that winter coat up. Guess what gets caught in the zipper? Beard hairs. Sucks. It's not comfortable.
That's not good.
Yeah.
All right, Tom. So, what are we talking about today? We could talk fashion all day because obviously we're two strapping gentlemen, and I see Brian and David, Kidd, and Jason here. So, I mean, we just go all day, and it'd just be the five of us talking about beards and mustaches and cool hair. But so we were talking. You had mentioned how to get your community. I think I'll paraphrase how to get your community to love you or even like you. Or is that the thought, Tom? And is that what we're going with?
Yeah, and maybe like, look, there's a lot of paths to take, right? So the how is kind of like, determined by a multitude of variables, right? It's really a multivariate solution. It's really, I think the first step is for people to understand and to get on board with the notion that the key in building a brand that is sustainable and that grows over time is to convince your audience to care about your brand, right? To convince them to feel good about supporting your brand. Because if you can convince someone to feel good about making a decision, in the vast majority of instances, they will make that decision, right? If you can convince someone to feel good about what they're doing, they're likely to do it, continue doing it, and convince their friends to do it too, right? So you end up with an engaged community, an audience that cares about what you're doing, that cares about your brand, that feels good about supporting it. So they continue to support it, and then also will go out and advocate for your brand, right? Will bring it to their friends, will act as a referral network for you, bringing in more people to your community. So that's really kind of what I wanted to talk about, is that idea, right? Starting with that idea, that notion, that belief that convincing people to feel good about supporting your business is key to building a long-term, sustainable, and growing brand.
Okay, Tom, I get it, and I'll let's go around, see what people have to say. I'll start with for me, it's simple. I mean, give more than I take. If I can give before I ask, I will ask at some point. We're all in business. I'm trying to feed my family or whatever, but I try to lead with the value, like you say, lead with giving. And at some point, there are certain things, like if I do certain services or whatever, I would ask, but how much can I give? How much content? How many smiles? How many, what are how much of myself and of the brand can we give? And then, at some point there may be an ask, but most of the time it's give. And people, I get and maybe I'm not good at it. I'll have people, and like Brian, I'm going to go to Brian and see what he thinks about this. Brian told me the other day, hey, Dom, you should ask more. Not ask. He said, you should promote yourself more. I must think at it, and be not good enough at it. Maybe if I'm saying give, maybe half of those I need to, maybe two more times I need to say, here's what I do clearly, so that people don't just wonder, what the hell does this guy even do? But so I'm caught in between, what the hell does this guy even do? wanting to give, and then thinking, well, I do ask, and I think I ask a good bit, but maybe I should ask more. So, not the smartest guys in the room. We're officially back. We were gone last week. Mr. Brian P. Swift, whose community does love him. Like, Brian has like ravenous supporters. When you get like to Brian's inner circle, they will like kill for him. Sorry, Brian, I'm saying it. They will like push you down to help him. Go on, Brian.
Maybe fight for him is a better way to phrase that. They'll fight for him. They got his back. Maybe something like that, rather than they'll kill him. They'll kill for him. So what do you think, Brian?
I
about
do
this idea?
I do have friends that have special talents that, will not kill for me. But, I think that's a dying thing today. People that will be in your foxhole when you need them. And that means more than give money and give time. That's a dying breed. I saw it in my dad's generation, and I see it now, not near as much, where what friendship means to me, it just seems to have faded to where, you can call somebody. And I have buddies that if they said, Swifty, I needed $5,000, I'd be like, got it. I wouldn't even ask why, because I know if they called me and they needed it, they'd get it for me. Or I had a friend call me from New York. His sister was getting divorced, and he was, it was a tumultuous separation. And he called me from New York, and his sister, it lives not far from me, about 20 minutes. And he said, I might need you to go over and have a conversation with the husband. I know what he meant by that. And he knew he could call me, and that if he needed something done, I would do it. I wouldn't ask a question. Those are tough friendships to have. And I don't know if you have those today, but I've been blessed with a handful of people that are like that. And then I do have a decent community, like you said, Tom, that really go to bat for you when you need something. So to build that is very special. And I think more than the ask, Dom, is showing, like for my nonprofit, showing the results of what they give. So showing people that you've given to that now are in a better position than they were before. I think that really helps build that community, is when you say, hey, I appreciate what everybody's done. Look at what you guys have helped solve, or look at what we've done. I've got 5 more people that can get outdoors and hand cycle with their families, and I've got this. So I think you have to also show the results of what you're asking people to follow you and participate in your vision giving. I'm complete.
Thanks, Brian. I would just, if I could just follow up with a question. So you talked about how the value of showing, the impact, right? The sort of the effect of the support. Why do you think that helps build community? Why is that so crucial to that community?
You know what? I believe it makes people feel good about their give. And even though they trust you, and even though they believe in you, I think it takes it from, I feel good about giving, to, wow. It hits an emotional spectrum in people that goes deeper than just giving, because now they see the result of their giving. And I think that gives them a better feeling of knowing the result of their giving. And I think they deserve that. I think people deserve to have that feeling. And I think that builds a little bit deeper bond in a community.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I agree. I think one of the things that I find interesting is I think a lot of people really understand that, right? Really get that idea when it comes to the nonprofit space, but think that decision making for purchasing is completely different from decision making for giving. And it's not at all. It's the same process and it's the same motivations. People make purchasing decisions, whether it's purchasing a product or purchasing impact by donating to a nonprofit. Everyone makes purchasing decisions based on emotion, driven by emotion. These are emotional decisions that we make that we later justify with reason. But the initial decision, the decision is made based on how it makes you feel. And one of the examples that I get into a lot, or that I use with people when I talk about this idea, is you talk about like home ownership, right? As an example of the likely for most people, for anybody who buys a home, for the vast majority of them, it is going to be the largest purchasing decision you ever make in your life, right? For the vast majority of people. And when you talk to people about the reasoning behind the home they decided to purchase, the first answers they'll give you are, it was in the right neighborhood. It was in the right school district. It had the eat-in kitchen we wanted. It had a big backyard, right? Like they'll give you a bunch of sort of like facts about the property, right? To justify it. And then as you drill down and keep asking, eventually they'll get to, it felt like home when we walked in, right? It was a place I wanted to raise my family, right? I could see my kids running around in that backyard, right? I could imagine us sitting down to family dinners in that kitchen, right? Which are all emotional ideas, right? Emotional processes. So at the end of the day, when you drill down with people on why they make the biggest purchasing decision that they're ever going to make in their life, it's because of how it made them feel, because of how they felt about that place and that decision. That's why they made the decision. And I would argue that if you're going to do that for the most money you're ever going to spend, for the biggest purchase of your life, you do the same for $100 decisions or $200 decisions or $500 decisions, right? It's the exact same process. It's about how it makes you feel. And so for nonprofits, it's very clear. People understand it intuitively that you donate to a nonprofit whose values you agree with because it makes you feel good to support the mission and the work that they're doing. But at the end of the day, you make the exact same kinds of decisions when it comes to which hat you purchase from which company, or what kind of car you drive, or where you go on vacation, right? Or what hotel you like to stay at. All of these decisions are emotionally driven decisions. And so I think it's really important that for sure in the nonprofit space, you emphasize that for your community, but you use the same principles in the for-profit space to help build community around your brand. And you do that through a myriad of ways. But I think it's important to really remember that decision-making is decision-making, right? We don't necessarily differentiate how we make decisions based on the context of those decisions. Generally speaking, our decision-making follows a pattern, and that pattern is emotionally driven. So yeah, what do you think, Dom?
I'm enjoying the conversation and I appreciate it. And I like as a publisher, I love to show finished product. I love to show I like Brian Swift on stage. Brian Swift's writing movies. Brian Swift's on stage. Brian Swift got a $5,000 check one time from Mountain Dew. A lot of the exposure he gets for nonprofit and all the work he does is based on him being an author, based on him being a podcaster, based on him being a radio show host. So I like to show when I'm working with my other authors who someday want to be a podcaster, who someday hope to get a $5,000 check from Mountain Dew for their nonprofit, who want to see. I like to show people like Brian doing things, the finished product, the person that's further down this road using their message to get wherever they're going. I love to show authors opening books. I love to show them that moment where you open the book. I'm like, send me the video, share the picture. They're like, I don't have anybody to do it. Well, set up your phone, have somebody hold it, put your phone on your dog's back. I don't care. Like I'd rather see the moment not as like some people I'll see, they'll like the box will already be opened, like, and then you can see like they retaped it and stuff. I'm like, come on, we want to show us that authentic moment, the end of the day. So I love it. And I agree with you and Brian in the nonprofit realm as well. But the question, Brian, you have in the nonprofit world, it's a fine line, because I'm going to step into another set of mud here, but sometimes you can show finished product in the nonprofit world, like Brian showing somebody using his wheelchair to get across the beach is lovely and what should be shown. Sometimes people exploit the people they are helping in the nonprofit world by showing, and so that's a fine line. In the nonprofit work I try not to show the people. We can show some of the things, but not the people, unless they really said, hey, so sorry to throw that wrench in it, but I'm very protective of the people that we help, so
that's not a wrench, Dom. I agree with you. I think everything has to be done not just in good taste, but in pure of heartness of why you're doing it. So I think there's reasons to show people with doing certain things, and I think if it's a good reason and a pure reason, I think that it's different than, like you said, some people are exploited. And Tom, to your fact, I totally agree that emotional decision is made when you buy a car, when you buy a watch, when you buy a house, when you do anything. I think people act more on emotion than they do logic with certain things. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing, but hopefully there's a lot of logic behind that eventual emotion, especially for certain purchases. I'm complete.
Yeah, no, agreed, Brian. Agreed. And Dom, I would actually say, like, I totally understand the hesitancy and the concern with like not being exploitative in your work and showing the people that are benefiting from a nonprofit or a charity, right? I would say that to my mind, there's a couple of ways around that. One is to always kind of do it in the context of sharing their stories, right? So sharing not necessarily your story or your narrative or the charity story or the charity's narrative, but the story of the beneficiary, right? And then the other thing I would say is give them agency in that storytelling, right? It's not exploitative if they have agency in it, right? If they can formulate and direct and play a guiding role, a decision-making role in how that story is told and what is told, then I don't think it's exploitative. I just added a whole syllable in there. I don't think it's exploitative at all, right? If you give them agency, if you include them in that process, right? So I actually think it can be a really good thing and really good for them, right? Because sometimes it's important for people to share their stories, to help other people to unburden themselves for feeling like they've had to sort of live in the outskirts or in the shadows, and not being able to bring their story to light or shine a light on the circumstances that put them in the position that they were in. So all of those kinds of things, I think if you give them agency in the process, then it's not exploitative, and in fact can actually be not only beneficial for the charity and the charitable works that you're doing, and then nonprofit, but also, cathartic and beneficial for the people whose stories you're telling, right? I mean, and all about that when it comes to publishing, right? Like, for yourself even, right? The book about your relationship with your mom was, I'm sure was incredibly cathartic for you. Writing that and then putting that book out really helped you, and you hope helped other people, going through similar things in their families, battling Alzheimer's. So, I think, I think it can be really helpful to share those stories. So I would just look at it, kind of maybe try to look at it through that lens, rather than thinking that telling those stories is always by definition an exploitation, because I don't think it has to be.
Truth. Well said, Tom. And something for me to walk a line, and I'm trying to figure out like all this, how to make sure I walk that line tastefully. Not the smartest guys in the room. John Jay, this is a perfect person to talk to about this, about communities that embrace you. The reason I say this, because John, I don't know if you know it, you're a little bit cranky at times, but he's cranky, but direct, and people love him. I think his community loves him. I love him. I consider myself in his community. I saw something the other day. It came over, and I'm like, that's a good deal. And then I saw like John. It was like you could be in John's like extra, like where he gives tips, and I'm like, that's pretty good deal. And then I see he has a coaching thing with Kevin Keppel soon. I saw it, and I'm like, I might do that. So I'm saying I love this guy, but he's a bit cranky. So John, admit to your crankiness, and then we'll allow you to speak on this subject. But what do you think it is? How do you think you get people to embrace the community so well? He said, I'm not embracing that.
You called him cranky. He's
not. He's like, forget you. I'm not doing it.
All right. You know what? I don't find John cranky. I find very adamant and passionate about his beliefs. And because he's got such a strong voice, I think he may come off cranky to some people, but I don't find him cranky because I don't think he uses cranky words. I find him passionate and very adamant about his beliefs. And I guess I respect that when somebody's that adamant, because he doesn't use cranky words. That's just my opinion. I'm complete.
Yeah, and it doesn't scare me. I find a charm in it that this guy's direct as can be. Like, that's how I see it. But I'll say cranky just to work him up.
Maybe an endearing curmudgeon. John popped on. John, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm a little cranky. And I'll just say this. There's, in this app in particular, there's so many people that, let's just call it what it is. They're just full of it. They hear something that sounds good and they repeat it ad nauseum. And all they're looking to do is separate you from your wallet, lighten your wallet. That's all they're out for. Those kind of people irritate me to no end. The only place I'm really cranky is in my own rooms. I'm an old school guy. I don't disrespect people in their rooms. I don't respect it. Like, this is not my room. This is Dominick and Tom's room. Even though I may disagree with them adamantly, we can disagree. That's fine. However, if you are disrespectful to me in my own house, in my own room, and try to make it about you, and then make the mistake of yelling at me, you're gone. I'm not tolerating that nonsense. It's just not happening. Thank you.
I 100% agree, John, and definitely respect that. First of all, I appreciate that you come here every week. We value your opinions. We value having you here as part of our community, and appreciate the fact that you respectfully, can have disagreements with us, that we can have those kinds of dialogues back and forth and share each other's opinions and walk away from it, still respecting each other and not have it, devolve into personal, ad hominem personal attacks and that kind of stuff. So just wanted to say that first, right off the bat. And second of all, I guess maybe I'm old school too, because I 100% agree with you. And I think Dom would say this as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dom, but if somebody came in here and started like attacking people in this community, right, and or either one of us, and yelling at us and being a jerk and then trying to sort of peddle their wares, they would get the boot real fast. Like, cause yeah, I mean, 100%, call me old school, but like not under my roof, buddy. Right. You're going to come in here. Like, you're going to play nice. You're going to be respectful. You can disagree. Everybody is free to have their own opinion. Right. And I'm not going to try to take that away from anyone. I definitely don't want a space where everybody agrees with everybody 100%. That's just boring and maybe a little weird and culty. And I don't like that either. But yeah, like, also you have to be respectful. Like, be a grown up, right? Be an adult about it. If you're going to disagree, that's fine, but you can also be an adult about it. You don't have to be a kid and throw a temper tantrum. So I'm with you, John. What do you think, Dom?
I'm loving it. I got a author I work with that hosts high-end speaking engagements, like super high-end. He'll get generals and captains and the biggest business barons in the world at these speeches. And they'll talk about a subject, so I'm going to throw this out there. They will talk about the border. They will talk about any subject that you would think, guns, any subject, healthcare, anything that you would think, wow, we better not touch on that subject. But to have these conversations with the highest level people from all sides, they say, first, we have to acknowledge that whatever that thing isn't perfect. And then we will be diplomatic and have a conversation. So they start with that. If we can at least understand that maybe you have a point that could, make things better. You have a point that could make things better. And so that's all he leads with. And so I'm like, wow, David's his name. David, how do you get these people to come? I mean, he's like, well, it starts like this, direct as can be. We start with, here's the issue. Now we have to admit that nobody has all the answers and it's not perfect. And then, so I'm like, it works out for them because they have this platform like we talk about. Like if I tell you about there's a perfect way to make a video. Well, maybe there's not, or maybe there's only one way to write a book. Well, you could write it. You could write it stream of consciousness. Okay, let's say I am not pro stream of consciousness in a lot of ways. I like structure and things like that, but that doesn't mean there aren't, like Robert Frost or somebody writes these poems that go on for 16 pages each time, and it's the greatest writing of all time for some people. Now I'd say, hey Robert, can we put a chapter in here or something like that? So things are different for everybody. So all right, it was a strange sidebar, but we will go. Jason said it before in the comments, and we're coming to you, Jason. He said, what did it say? And our buddy David had the role. He was here. He's going to class or something. Jason said it was great. That's a windy road explanation. And I'm not sure who he was talking to at the time, but that fit probably what I was just saying. So Jason, man, if you're
I was going to say it might have been me because it wouldn't be the first time I took a long and winding road to end up at an explanation. But yeah, I'm curious to hear too, Jason.
We're guilty. So Jason, man, you're building communities. You've been TikToking, and I see your lives are getting more and more views. So how do you get an engaged community? So we're going to keep talking about that. So go on, Jason.
An invitation first. Understand that you're giving people an invitation to know you on any social media and any.
Hey, my friend, you're a little low. Your volume's a little low.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, your picture looks good there. Okay, get that volume
up. Is that better?
Is that Tom better? Shakes his head yes. Go on.
Okay, great. The first thing is to give people an invitation. What do you start with an invitation? What is the interest? What are you there to give them? And it's not really giving. It's, think about it, sharing. No matter what you are trying to accomplish, are you willing to invite people to come to your table and share? That's the first most important thing. If you don't know that you're bringing a contribution, not just for yourself to enjoy, but others to share, then you're on an island. And I'm sorry, you can make all the podcasts, you can do all the things, you can create networks. But if no one cares to sit at your table to share with you, then you have nothing. I'm sorry. You have to really make it really concise about what you're sharing. And remember that involves your community and your charity. Those two big words are so very important to any network, any brand, and when you know that the community and the charity of what you give, it's a contribution of investments to help circulate activity, actions, and thoughts. If you can't get that down, you're wasting time. And a new thing is never get caught, a thing that I try to practice is never get caught complaining to yourself or others, which I fail, but I try to. So like there's things like, for example, can you handle a disagreement with somebody? Say like we're on air, right? Can you handle a disagreement with Tom or John or David or Brian or Dominic? Can you actually make an articulate disagreement without taking personal offense. It's easy to explain, hey, mess around and you find out the consequences. That's giving way too much leverage every single time. But if the calmer person, the more strategic person's like, okay, now you showed me who you are. Is it going to be a contribution and community of my network to the brand that I develop and I build? If it's not doing that, you're a failure. I will say, I try to always bring a value to share at this table right now. It could be recorded, someone could listen to it, and someone will be like, hey, I want to know what that guy said. Why did he say it that way? Because through a lot of life failures and accomplishments, that's the conclusion I've met. So I'm going to stop there. And thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jason. So out of curiosity, I don't think you answered the original question. I appreciate your thoughts. Don't get me wrong.
He was being nice to you, Tom. Maybe he didn't want to say.
I want to know. Like,
yeah,
if it was me, particularly call me out. I want to hear it.
Yeah, Tom, you have I think what's happening and what I'm observing is you got so many right thoughts and put it into the right frame for you. So what happens is you're not getting to the point. You give a long explanation. And I'm like, well, how in the hell is he talking about branding and getting people to want to follow? If he's giving all these extra things, that's like extra explanations when you only have an hour. And I'm like, let's get to the point. Come on. I'm with you on the ride, bro. We're going uphill. Come on, let's see where the finish line is. What's the point? Because if we can't get to the point of what we're sharing at this table, then what are you doing? I mean, that's not me being harsh. That's me being a realist that loves listening to you. And, you've accomplished certain things more than I have. But it's like, if you are not thinking about that answer, giving yourself exactly 30 seconds, you've lost your audience, you lost your public, and maybe jeopardizing your community of what you have. So if that's what you want as a call out, then that's what it is. But I follow you and I listen and I try to be as respectful as I can be.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the feedback. Yeah. And I would say, honestly, I think the point is to spur discussion, right? So even if the discussion that ends up being on is that I took a long time to explain the ideas that I was trying to convey to get the conversation started, fine. Like, I've never been accused of being short-winded in my life. So I will accept that. It is a quirk, an idiosyncrasy of my personality, and I'm totally okay with it. But yeah,
too,
I think,
bro, it's all good. I do it too.
yeah, no, I appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, I think honestly,
Ditto. Yeah, ditto. Go on. Sorry.
the point is to spur conversation. Honestly, that's the point. Like, that's what I'm trying to do, is to try to get people to engage in a conversation. And I try to give people as many different sort of handholds or toeholds as I can in order to do that. So that's kind of why I give a lot of different examples and try to paint things in particular ways so that people A, can understand them, or B, can identify with them so that they have a better opportunity to engage in the conversation. But that's why I do it. Could I be a little bit faster about it? Absolutely. But I don't know if I ever will.
Hey, this is fair. I want to tell you something nerdy. So I love Lincoln. Read all these books about unknown Lincoln, all this stuff. Love them. So one of the books I read was about, like, it broke down the whole Gettysburg Address, and so it's 300 pages of how he got to the Gettysburg Address. And there's this: the house divided will not stand. This was in an inaugural address he gave. This house divided will not stand. They trace back his Gettysburg speech and this house divided will not stand for like 20 years. And they show you where he started to use pieces of these speeches. And so what you see, let's say Tom or Jason or me, we, as you articulate these ideas, and like, let's, like, Tom with value first, lead with value always. He has worked on this over the years. I'm sure he didn't start with lead with value always 20 years ago. I'm sure he was leading with value, but to be able to say it so succinctly and so clearly, it took time. And so sometimes as we answer questions and something comes up, we might stumble because we're thinking about it. And then later on, Jason will do a podcast or video at some point, and it'll be so clear that you'll be like, man, he nailed that. Hold on, I'm reading Jason saying, and one of the greatest read attorneys in history, one of the greatest read attorneys in history. Absolutely, Jason. He's given Lincoln some love, so yeah, I'm a fan. All right, not the smartest guys in the room. We're back today. I wanted to, David, anybody that wants, you guys with tickets down at the bottom, please join the room. We do this every week on Wednesday. We love to have you. We talk about all things publishing, podcasting, social media, production, and we just really dig into them. Today we're talking about building community, how we grow a community, how you get your community to love, support, to think about you. Jason's making me laugh. He said Lincoln was long-winded as well. Not when he gave the Gettysburg Address that was 30 seconds or 3 minutes and 32 seconds or something. When he got off the stage, imagine one of the greatest speakers of all time. When he got off the stage, he thought he failed miserably.
Oh, no, he was hot-tempered and long-winded in his case law. Like, some judges kicked him out of court because he couldn't make a point or wrap his summations. So Lincoln was a character. He was a long-winded, and I'm like, how in the hell did he get anyone to follow him?
Yeah, right, man. So, all right. So here's a question I got to ask. I'm going back to something. John Jay, I came to you earlier and asked you this question, and I just want to, why, here's what I want to get to on it. Like, you built big communities now. Why do you think they are so loyal? And I want to be more direct with that.
I'll give you an example. Dominick, how are you doing after your surgery? Are you recuperating well?
I am almost doing jumping jacks. If anybody's watching on the live stream, I'm moving my hands. It looks like a jumping jack. Go on, John.
And here's another example. If you're able to spend the day with your mother, what would you do? As compared to me saying, my mother's in town visiting, she's 88, we're going to go do this. The trick is something I was taught a long time ago. Police work actually helped me with this, because you don't know what happened. You've got to have people explain to you what happened to determine. So if you want to make friends at a dinner party, the fastest way to make friends is to get them to talk about themselves. When we focus on them and not you, when we focus on what is in relatable content for them and not you, or the product or service you offer, the faster you will grow. The more they will think you care. There's an old saying that's thrown out quite a bit. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. When you make it about them and everything you do, you will grow much faster. And people think, hey, they like me, they care about me. But when you start, and I'll give you an example very quickly. This is the classic mistake that a lot of people make with social media. They'll post it and use Facebook example. Hey, do me a favor and check out my latest show and follow me on YouTube, whatever it might be. You are making an ask. Nowhere did you say, hey, this is something that's common that everybody can relate to, the audience you're going for. And I'll close on this. A lot of the great charities, they have commercials. And the very first thing they do is they appeal to the emotional side of you, the potential consumer. We use the pet commercial as an example. All these pets dying. I can't even watch it. I turn it. They get a reaction. It works. Wounded Warrior. They talk about what they're doing for people. They don't talk about them. They talk about the people. And that's the thing. The more you focus on the people and what's in it for them, the faster they will follow you. The more you focus on telling them about you, what you offer, what you do, how you're an expert, how you know this, the more people will ignore your ass. And they just won't come back.
I mean, yeah, I 100% agree, John. I besides, other than lead with value, right? One of the other things I like to talk about is putting your audience first, right? Because ultimately it's about them. It's not about you. I know you embrace that idea when it comes to your radio show, that you're very focused on making sure that the conversations that you have there and the content that you're delivering is the content that your audience is showing up for. Right. And yeah, so I 100% agree. You got to remember, always remember, it's not about you, it's about them. Speaking about them, AKA me, Dom, I'm curious to see what you've got for show and tell this week.
All right, let's do it. I'm keeping it simple. You guys know I had surgery last week, so I
Dom,
decided,
don't show us the scars.
I could show you now. I'm not ready to show any scars yet. So
Uncle Dom and his surgery scars would be so awesome for show and
you
tell.
know, if they kept making more knives in my stomach, it might look like I have abs just because all the scars. I'm like, hey man, can you just make those sideways instead of up and down? And then it would look like, okay, so I'm going to keep it simple. I didn't want to get up and walk today, so I'm sitting at my desk and I'm like, damn, I better produce a show and tell. So here it is. We started finishing my basement right before I went down for surgery. We're moving along. Me and my father-in-law, Liz helped, my daughter helped. She helped me put up some insulation. But what I'm learning about, so got myself a good tape measure here. But what I learned, and tell me like how old you were when you learned something. And I don't know if I'm wrong about this or this is just, so I always heard like 16-inch studs, like everything needs to be on 16-inch when you build. Okay. So I've heard this a lot of times. I never knew that a tape measure marks the 16 inches. So like we just move it across and then there's another red 16 inches. So I'm like, I'm a wizard now in my building. I can just, and then I see 16, and then we add studs there. So I'm like a wizard because I was listening, I was learning, and now I'm going to take that to the next level in my building and construction. A tape measure is marked on the 16th. That's what I got for you today.
Yeah. It's I mean, no, it absolutely is. And it makes framing go a lot faster, right? Because it's the sort of framing standard is 16 on center for studs and for joists. Unless you have a floor that's going to bear a lot of weight. Sometimes you'll do joists like 12 inches on center, just to add a little bit more strength and rigidity to the floor, which is something not unheard of, especially in like garages where you're going to have a lot of weight, like in a loft or something like that. They'll do that. They'll put the floor joists like 12 inches on center to add a little extra rigidity. There's something else fun about tape measures. A little fun fact about tape measures. I wonder if you know. So the end of that, the little hook on the end of that tape measure kind of wiggles around a little bit, right? Like in and out. There's a little bit of play in it, in and out, right?
Yeah, gotcha. Yep.
Just a little tiny bit, right? It slides kind of in and out just a little bit.
All right.
Do you know why?
It's a shitty tape measure. I don't know.
No, and that's what everybody thinks. Everybody's like, why can't they rivet this thing so it doesn't move? Right? People are always annoyed, but there's a really good reason for it. Do you know how much it moves?
I'd say a 1/16.
It moves exactly the thickness of that little piece of metal, that hook on the end of the tape measure. And the reason why is because if you were to hook that over the end of a stud, right, and pull that tape measure out, you get one measure. But then if you were to push that tape measure into a corner, right, you would get a different measurement. Your measurement would be off by a 16th-ish, right, because of the thickness of that piece of metal. Because it's there if you push the tape measure into the corner, and it's not there if you hook the tape measure over something. So that little bit of play accounts for the thickness of that piece of metal so that you get the same measurement regardless of how you measure. Which I always thought was a little interesting.
That is interesting. And I was going to ask while you were So I was going to ask, did they do it on purpose? So now, okay. I feel good about this, man. So I'm building basements. We're building communities here. All is good. You can learn a lot of things.
We're learning together.
Great.
I mean, we might as well be sitting around in a campfire holding hands and singing Kumbaya at this point.
That's the kind of room this is. Okay, so we got David, Brian, David went to class. So before we get to your wrap up, Tom, we're going to get a last tip from Brian, John, and me about building community. If anybody else wanted to jump up, then that we will allow that. But Mr. Swift, building community. You have a few of them. You have a SOAR family. Like I said earlier, people would fight for Brian P. Swift. I would fight for Brian P. Swift. So Brian, you have a tip on building community?
Now, you know what? I do. And that's back to something that Tom has talked about quite a bit, and that's reciprocate. I think it's important to reciprocate back to not just the people that support you, but I think they're top on the list. So I think it's to reciprocate in ways they need it. And it, whatever that may be, when they need support, I think it's important that you try to be there for them. So one more tip, Dom, if you cut a piece of wood 15 inches, you can put that, instead of using a tape measure, you just drop that between your 16-inch on center studs, and then you don't have to use a tape measure. You just drop that piece of wood there, that 2x4, butt the next one up against it, and that way you don't have to pull out a tape measure every time. So that saves a bit of time also. I'm complete.
Love it. Thank you. All right, now we're on to John J. You have a tip for building community. What do you got?
The very first tip, I'm using social media and Facebook as an example. The very first tip I would give people is start not every post, but do at least once a day. Start a post with your thoughts, not what I think, not what I do, and eliminate I, me, and mine from your lingo as much as possible. Make it you, yours, your family. What do you think? All those things. But start one post a day with your thoughts, and you might be surprised at the engagement you get and how much that will grow your presence. That's a little tip from me that works very well.
Good stuff, Mr. John J. Appreciate all you. I'm going to piggyback on Brian and John's. Like, for me, it's just give first. I believe in karma. So I'm out there just like, I think like if I do enough good, if I support enough people, it probably ends up coming back in some way. So I'm just always it'll work out. I have a friend who goes like this. She asks herself questions, and I'm going to say it and show. She asks herself important questions of life, and she swings her arms up like this, and she says, if her fingers and thumbs are in line, that's the answer. So I think deep down, it'll all work out if you just do what's right. So that's what I try to do. And on that note, this has been a great, not the smartest guys in the room, but we have Tom, wrap us up. We're talking about building community here. That's what we talked about today. Talked about the tape measure and some other things, and good hair and beards. But now, good hair, beards, tape measure, building community. Figure it out, Tom. What do you got for us?
Thanks, Dom. Thanks for setting me up for success. I actually want to take it back to something that you talked about and Brian responded to a little bit earlier in the conversation. And that is talking about this idea of not overly promoting yourself. Right. And Brian said to you said you err away from promoting yourself, away from self-promotion. And Brian said in response, I think you could promote yourself more. And it got me thinking, I think there really is like a balancing act to be done, right, when it comes to this. And again, I'm a very visual thinker. I always have to have a sort of metaphor to use. And so in my mind, I think of those like old school like scales, right? Usually the ones that are used in like images of like the scales of justice, right? Where there's like two trays, and you put what you're measuring in one and weights in the other until it balances even, right? And I actually think when it comes down to it, in terms of building community and delivering value to your audience, and making sure that you are not overly self-promoting, but giving them enough invitations to actively engage in your business and your brand, and knowing how to support you in order to reciprocate for the value you're delivering to them. I think the way to think about that is you want it to always be tilted slightly in favor of the audience, right? So you want it always to be slightly tilted in favor of the audience. You want people in your audience to always be of the opinion that you could promote yourself more, right? But you want to kind of get close to that line. You never want to get to the point where they say either, I think he promotes himself enough, or I think he promotes himself too much, because then you're making it about you and not about them. And you're gonna drive people away from your community if you kind of fall onto that side of the balance. So I just wanted to encourage people to think about that, especially in the context of what we started talking about today, when it comes to giving people a reason or an opportunity to feel good about supporting your business. In order to do that, you always have to have the scales tilted slightly in the favor of your audience. And so therefore, people should always feel like you could probably promote yourself a little bit more, but also be aware that you choose not to, that you choose to deliver more value to them, right, than you are taking from them, and that you will continue to do that because at the end of the day, you care about them. And the easiest way to convince someone to care about you is to demonstrate that you care about them. Like John was saying, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care, right? So make sure that you always have the scales tilted slightly in favor of your community members, slightly in favor of your audience, and slightly away from your own self-promotion or promotion of your brand. And that's all I got for today. Just wanted to share that thought, share that idea. Hopefully that wasn't too winding of an explanation for Jason, who's not here anymore, but I appreciate the feedback. Like I said, I have been long-winded my entire life, and I'm pretty sure it's not going to change. But I am who I am, right? As Popeye used to say. So anyway, with that said, thanks everybody for being here. I got so winding, I lost my train of thought there for a second. Thanks everybody for being here with us this week. Thanks for being part of Not the Smartest Guys in the Room. We appreciate you. We will see you next Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, right here on Not the Smartest Guys in the Room, broadcasting live all over the internet. And if you want to join the conversation, feel free to find us on the old Clubhouse. But if you just want to listen in or watch, you can do that on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and more. We hope to see you next Wednesday. Until then, everybody have a great rest of your week. We love you. We appreciate you. And we will see you